She wasn't supposed to look at me that way, not in the soft light of the kitchen, not with the echo of her brother's laughter still hanging in the next room. But she did. And for a second, I forgot how to breathe. It started as nothing. A visit, a favor, a casual drop-in. My friend had asked me to help move some boxes from his sister's garage. I expected dust, awkward small talk, maybe lemonade if I was lucky. What I didn't expect was her, standing barefoot on the tiled floor, sleeves rolled to her elbows, hair tied loosely but never quite staying in place. "Thanks for helping," she said, voice quiet but sure, the kind of tone that makes you listen twice. Her name, I said it once and it stayed on my tongue too long. She was in her 40s, but not in the way people meant when they said it like a number. There was a calmness in her, a kind of grace that didn't ask for attention yet always had it. She moved differently than anyone I knew. Every small motion, wiping dust from her wrist, adjusting her glasses, pushing a strand of hair back, felt deliberate, like she knew the air would pay attention. I carried boxes, tried not to watch her, failed every time. At one point, she stopped beside me to hand over a smaller one, her fingers brushing against mine. It wasn't even a second, but it was enough. My hand burned where her skin had touched it. She didn't pull away immediately, and when she did, she smiled like she just remembered she shouldn't. "You're quieter than I thought you'd be," she said, leaning slightly against the counter. I shrugged. "I don't talk much when I don't want to say something stupid." She laughed, a real one, low and a little surprised. It wasn't just her laugh that got me, it was how she looked at me while doing it. Like I'd given her something she hadn't had in a while, a moment that wasn't careful. The afternoon stretched. Her brother left to grab something from the store, leaving just us and the soft ticking of the kitchen clock. Silence filled in the space between us, comfortable at first, then heavy. She poured 2 glasses of water, slid one to me, her fingers grazing the rim as if on purpose. "You look like someone who's always thinking," she said. "Not always," I replied, though my mind was racing. "What are you thinking now?" "That if I tell you, you might stop looking at me like that." Her breath caught, small, almost inaudible. The corners of her mouth curved, but not into a full smile. Something quieter. Sadder. "You shouldn't say things like that," she murmured. "Probably not," I said. "But I meant it." She turned then, slowly, as if the movement itself carried weight. Her hand rested on the edge of the counter, the gold of her ring faintly catching the light. A ring that no longer meant anything, if the faint tan line around it said what I thought it did. I wanted to step closer. I didn't. The clock ticked louder. Her eyes met mine again, and this time, neither of us looked away. The distance between us felt fragile, like a thread pulled too tight. Then, footsteps sounded in the hall. Her brother's voice, cheerful, oblivious. The air shifted instantly. She stepped back, smoothing her hair, her voice steady again. "You should probably carry that last box out before he gets back." But when she looked at me one last time, her lips parted, just enough to whisper something I almost didn't hear. "If I reach for you, will you stay?" The door creaked open behind us before I could answer. The next time I saw her, it wasn't planned. I'd stopped by to drop off a borrowed tool, something small, something that didn't require a visit. But the truth was, I wanted to see her again. Maybe to convince myself that what happened in that kitchen hadn't meant anything. She opened the door wearing an old sweatshirt, her hair pulled back carelessly, eyes softer than I remembered. The house smelled like rain and coffee. "You again," she said with a half-smile. "You really do return things." I shrugged. "Some things are worth returning." She looked at me longer than she should have, then stepped aside to let me in. There was music playing faintly from another room, an old record, something low and wistful. She moved about quietly, pouring coffee for both of us without asking, like she already knew I'd stay. We talked in fragments. Work, errands, nothing real. But beneath every word was that same quiet hum from before, the one that made me notice too much, how her sleeves slipped down her wrist, the way her thumb traced the rim of her mug, the faint shadow beneath her eyes that said she hadn't been sleeping well. "You live alone now?" I asked. She nodded. "Almost 2 years." A pause. "You?" I smiled faintly. "I'm not old enough to live alone without it worrying my mother." That made her laugh, small, real, the kind of sound that filled a space without trying. But there was something else behind it, something that cracked for half a second. "My marriage ended quiet," she said after a while. "No fights. Just quiet. Like a song that fades before you realize it's over." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. She seemed to appreciate that. Later, we ended up in the living room, side by side on the couch, not close enough to touch, but close enough to feel the warmth. A storm had started outside, soft rain pressing against the windows. She reached to hand me a blanket, her fingers brushing my shoulder. Just that, a small, accidental thing, but my pulse tripped. Her hand lingered a moment too long, then she withdrew it, tucking it beneath her arm as if to stop it from moving again. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she said quietly. "How am I looking at you? Like you're not supposed to." I wanted to answer, but the words tangled somewhere between sense and wanting. Instead, I reached out and gently straightened the fold of her sleeve where it had slipped, my fingers barely grazing her wrist. Her breath caught. I felt it more than heard it. For a long second, either of us moved. The sound of rain filled everything, the steady rhythm of it against the glass, her slow inhale, my heartbeat keeping time. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. "You make it hard to remember where the lines are." "Maybe they were never that clear," I said. She turned to look at me then, really look. The kind of gaze that feels like a choice. No words followed. Just silence, and a small, trembling pause before her hand rested, barely, over mine. Not holding. Not pulling away. It happened on a Sunday afternoon, the kind that feels too quiet, like the world had forgotten to turn the volume back up. I was in her kitchen again. It had become a habit neither of us wanted to name, me finding reasons to stop by, her not asking too many questions when I did. She was making tea this time, standing by the window with her sleeves rolled, the pale light touching the side of her face. The rain from the night before had left everything glistening, the air still damp. "You keep showing up," she said, her tone playful, but her eyes didn't quite match it. "I could stop," I said. She didn't answer. Just stirred her tea, slow and steady, then looked up at me. "You won't?" The space between us was shrinking, not in distance, but in the way silence started to mean too much. She handed me a mug, her fingers brushing mine. The warmth of it traveled up my arm before I could blink. I tried to look away, but she caught me, her gaze steady, unreadable. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she said again, barely above a whisper. "You keep saying that," I murmured, "and I keep not listening." Her lips parted slightly, a breath, a pause, and for one unguarded second she didn't look away. Then, her phone buzzed on the counter. We both froze. She turned to grab it, her hand trembling just enough for me to notice. A message lit up the screen, her brother's name. "On my way. 5 minutes." She exhaled sharply, the sound caught somewhere between panic and disbelief. "He's coming back?" I asked. She nodded, eyes darting toward the door, then back to me. "You should go." "I will," I said, but neither of us moved. She stepped closer, maybe to hand me my jacket, maybe not. Her hand brushed my chest, and suddenly, everything felt too close. The scent of her tea. The warmth of her breath. The faint tremor in her fingers. She stopped there, inches away, her eyes searching mine for something she wasn't ready to find. "This is wrong," she whispered. "I know." Her hand lingered on my chest, not moving, not pulling back. My pulse hammered beneath her palm, loud enough that I thought she could hear it. Outside, a car door slammed. We both flinched. Her eyes darted toward the window, then back at me. For one split second, she hesitated, torn between reason and something far more dangerous. I could feel her breath against my neck when she said, "You have to go now." I nodded, but my feet stayed still. The doorknob rattled in the next room, her brother's voice calling her name. She reached up quickly, her fingers brushing my jaw. Not a kiss, not even a promise. Just contact. A fleeting touch that said everything we couldn't. Then she stepped back, her voice calm again. "Go." I left through the side door, my heart still racing, her touch still there, like a secret I couldn't set down. It had been days since that near miss. The sound of the door, the way her hand had trembled against my chest. I hadn't planned to see her again so soon. But distance didn't make it easier, it only made the silence louder. When she called, her voice was softer than usual. "I still have your jacket," she said. "You should come get it." She could have left it with her brother. She didn't. By the time I arrived, the house was dark except for a lamp in the living room. She stood there, barefoot, a loose sweater falling off one shoulder, her hair half tucked behind her ear. The jacket was on the chair between us, like a peace offering neither of us meant to keep. "You could have dropped it off," I said quietly. "I could have," she replied. "But I didn't." Her tone wasn't playful this time. It was steady, deliberate, like someone walking toward the edge on purpose. For a while, we didn't say much. The air was thick with everything we hadn't said in weeks. The clock ticked, the rain started again outside, and the world narrowed until it was only the two of us. "You've been avoiding me," I said. She looked down at her hands. "You make it hard to think straight." "That's not an answer." She laughed under her breath, tired, uneven. "You're too young to understand how many wrong things can feel right." I took a step closer. "Try me." She looked up then, and something in her eyes faltered. The kind of look that came right before someone gave up pretending. "You don't know what it's like," she whispered. "To finally feel seen again, and know you shouldn't." I moved closer, just enough for her breath to brush my jaw. My hand lifted, almost on instinct, to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. Her eyes fluttered shut. "Then stop pretending you don't," I said softly. Her breath hitched. Her fingers gripped the edge of the chair, knuckles pale. "I shouldn't want this," she said. "Then tell me to go." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Instead, she reached up, her hand trembling as it touched my collar, then the side of my neck. The warmth of her skin against mine sent something through me I couldn't contain. "Don't," she said finally, voice breaking. "If we start this." Her words dissolved when I leaned closer, close enough to feel the tremor in her breath. "Then stop me," I murmured. She didn't. Her forehead rested against mine for a heartbeat, 1 second too long to be innocent, too short to be a confession. The air between us vibrated with everything we weren't saying. Then, a sharp sound. A knock. She jerked back, breath unsteady. Another knock, louder this time. Her eyes widened. "It's him." I stepped back, chest still heaving, her scent clinging to my sleeve. Outside, her brother called her name through the door. The next morning, I told myself I wouldn't go back. I told myself a lot of things that didn't matter. Because by sunset I was standing on her porch again, hands in my pockets, heartbeat reckless. She opened the door like she'd been expecting me, though her eyes were different this time, guarded, searching. The kind of look that came when you'd already made a decision you didn't want to say out loud. "You shouldn't have come," she said softly. "I know." She let the door stay open anyway. Inside, the house was still, but not peaceful. The kind of stillness that comes after something has already been set in motion. "I thought about last night," she said, standing near the table, her hand resting against it like she needed something solid. "So did I." Her gaze lifted to meet mine, and for a moment neither of us blinked. Then she spoke again, her voice shaking. "He saw you." My stomach tightened. "Your brother?" She nodded, her eyes dropping to the floor. "He came back earlier than I thought. He didn't say anything, but he saw you leaving through the side door. This morning he asked if there was something." And what did you say? Her silence was answer enough. You lied for me. She looked up, a flicker of defiance in her eyes. I lied for us. The word hung there, us, heavier than anything she'd said before. I stepped closer slowly, testing the air between us. So what happens now? Her lips parted, breath uneven. Now it's complicated. It already was. She shook her head, pressing a hand to her temple. You don't understand. He always thought I was the responsible one. The one who never crossed lines, never wanted anything she shouldn't. And now? I asked quietly. Her eyes met mine. Now I don't even recognize myself. I took another step toward her, until there was barely a breath between us. The scent of her perfume, faint, familiar, wrapped around me like a memory that wouldn't fade. You think this makes you someone else, I said. But it doesn't. It just means you're human. Her voice broke on a whisper. You make it sound easy. It isn't. That's why I'm still here. She reached for the back of the chair, fingers trembling as if to stop herself from reaching for me instead. But the motion drew us closer, and when I brushed past her to steady it, our hands collided, a small, sharp shock that made her flinch. Her breath came quicker. He'll know if you keep coming here. Then tell me to stop. She looked at me, really looked, the way she had that first day, like she couldn't decide whether she wanted to run or stay. Her voice came out barely audible. I don't want to stop. I swallowed hard. Then don't. She stepped back, shaking her head. You don't know what that means for me. Maybe I do. For a moment she seemed to fold inward, her hands tightening into fists before she whispered, Then I'm the one who'll lose more. And yet, even as she said it, she took one small step closer. Close enough that her hand brushed mine again, soft as breath. The night she finally called me again, her voice was quiet, almost lost in the sound of wind through the phone. Can you come over? She said. Just to talk. Those words, just to talk, were a lie we both needed to believe. When I arrived, the house was dim. One lamp by the couch, the faint hum of a record spinning softly in the background. She stood by the window in an oversized cardigan, arms folded as though she was trying to hold herself together. I closed the door gently behind me. You okay? She turned, eyes tired but steady. No. Not really. I waited, but she didn't look away this time. He asked me again today, she said. My brother. If there's something between us. And what did you say? That there wasn't. A pause. And it hurt to say it. The silence that followed was the kind that makes breathing feel like a confession. I crossed the room slowly. She didn't move, didn't retreat. The rain outside had turned to mist, tapping faintly against the glass. Why'd you call me then? I asked. She exhaled, long and shaky. Because I'm tired of pretending it's not real. Her voice broke on the last word. I stopped just in front of her. The lamplight traced the curve of her face, the tremor of her lower lip. My hand rose without permission, brushing her hair gently behind her ear. She didn't flinch. Instead, she closed her eyes, leaning slightly toward the touch, a small, helpless movement that undid every ounce of distance we tried to keep. You know this doesn't end clean, I said quietly. I don't want clean, she whispered. I want honest. Her hand came up then, fingers brushing against my jaw, tracing the line of stubble like she was memorizing it. The warmth of her skin left me unsteady. You're shaking, I murmured. So are you. For a moment neither of us moved. The air between us felt electric, too charged to last. I don't know how to do this, she said, her voice trembling. Then let's not think about doing it, I replied. Let's just be here. Her eyes opened, glassy, vulnerable, unguarded. She searched my face like she was trying to find a reason to step back. There wasn't one. When I leaned closer, she didn't retreat. Our foreheads touched first, a quiet, grounding contact. The kind that holds more meaning than a kiss ever could. Her breath mixed with mine, warm, uneven. Tell me to stop, I said one last time. She shook her head. No, she whispered. Not this time. Her fingers slipped to the back of my neck, drawing me closer, not desperate, but certain. The air trembled with everything that had been building between us, every unsaid word, every pause that had turned into longing. And then she said it, soft, almost afraid of the sound. I wanted you to stay. That was the moment everything stilled. The fear, the guilt, the pretense, all of it fell away. I rested my forehead against hers, breathing her in, feeling the quiet thrum of her heartbeat against my chest. No words left. No lines left to cross. Just the truth, bare and fragile between us. When she finally looked up, her eyes were clear. Now you understand, she said. I do. Morning came slow. The kind of morning where the light doesn't rush in, it seeps, like it's afraid of breaking something fragile. I sat on the edge of her couch, watching the steam rise from 2 untouched mugs of coffee. She was beside me, legs drawn close, wrapped in that same cardigan from the night before. Neither of us had said much yet. There was no storm now, no electricity humming between us. Just quiet, the kind that felt earned. I keep thinking about what happens next, she said softly. Her voice was low, hoarse from sleeplessness, but calm. I know, I said. So do I. She gave a small, tired smile. You make it sound simple. It isn't, I admitted. But I don't think simple's what we ever wanted. She turned to look at me then, really look, eyes clear, unguarded in a way they hadn't been before. For the first time, there wasn't guilt hiding behind them. Just something gentler. I was scared, she said after a long pause. Of what people would think. Of how easily I could lose myself in this. And now? No, she said, her hand finding mine. I think I'm tired of being afraid of what makes me feel alive. I let her fingers slide through mine, slowly, deliberately, our hands settling together like they'd done it 100 times before. She leaned back into the couch, her shoulder pressing lightly against mine. The closeness was easy now, natural. The kind of closeness that didn't ask for anything, didn't demand an explanation. Do you regret it? She asked quietly. I shook my head. Not for a second. Her smile returned, soft, honest, a little sad but steady. Then I guess that's our answer. We sat there for a while, saying nothing, just listening to the morning. The faint whistle of the kettle, the sound of wind brushing the curtains, the rhythm of our breathing. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't clean. But it was ours. She rested her head against my shoulder. I felt her exhale, slow and deep, as if letting go of something she'd carried too long. My hand found its way to her hair, brushing lightly through it until she closed her eyes. This is what I wanted, she whispered. Not the chaos. Just this. I smiled, a quiet one she couldn't see but somehow felt. Then stay. She did. No more hiding, no more pretending. Just the warmth of her beside me, her hand still wrapped in mine, the morning light spilling across the room as if it finally approved. Somewhere between her soft laugh and the clink of mugs on the table, I realized something simple. What we'd found wasn't about right or wrong anymore. It was about being seen, completely, and still choosing to stay. She looked up at me once more, eyes half-lit by the sun. You still haven't answered my question from before, she said. What question? Her lips curved, almost teasing. If I reach for you, will you stay? I leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. Always.